Well, howdy again. You must be ready for a Fletch Lives movie review from Tom Richardson. Well, just like the first time around, I'm going to be trying to host this movie review for you. Wasn't so successful the first time around, but maybe this time I'll get to review Fletch Lives instead of Tom Richardson for you. Well, wait a minute. Oh, doggone it, he's here again. I guess he's just going to have to review this movie for you. So hey guys, that was my little skit again of something that the character of Irwin Fletcher likes to do in the movie Fletch. But in this time around, in this movie review, I'm going to be talking about the sequel Fletch Lives. And like I said, the character of Fletch likes to take on several different disguises in this movie. Besides this character here, I think all these other characters are something that were featured in Fletch Lives, the sequel. That's the movie I'm going to be reviewing for you today. So in Fletch Lives, you guys, Irwin Fletcher finds out that his aunt has passed away. She lived in Louisiana. She had a big plantation. She seemed to have a lot of money based off of kind of what he was learning about her and what he knew about her and things like that. So because he now is responsible for this plantation that's now in his name now that his aunt passed away and kind of put in the will that Irwin Fletcher now owns the property, Fletch tries to leave his journalism job in California, his investigative journalism job, and he goes down to Louisiana, and the plantation is nowhere near what he thought it was going to be. He definitely did not think this was the kind of the retirement from journalism that he was hoping it was going to be. But he lives in the plantation anyway. He tries to clean it up. There's a guy who's living there temporarily, what it seems like, who's going to help him clean up the place. And while this is going on, Irwin Fletcher does kind of have this small relationship going on with this woman. For those who saw the first Fletch movie, it's not that same woman. This is a different person. And so basically, Fletch kind of pursues this small relationship with this woman, but it's very short-lived because one morning he wakes up, they're both sleeping in the same bed together, and the woman is found dead. And this basically frames Irwin Fletcher for murder. So basically, he's trying to prove his innocence. He's not going to jail because the police kind of believe his story and because he's a journalist and stuff like that. So they do believe him on the fact that he didn't murder this woman, but he does have to prove his innocence. He has to prove that this was someone else who did this. So basically, throughout the course of this movie, Irwin Fletcher has to figure out who exactly killed this person. Was this whole plantation thing a setup because the will seems so rushed from his aunt and stuff like that? He really believes that his aunt would have planned this out a little better. So this is something that the character Irwin Fletcher has to figure out over the course of Fletch Lives. So overall, guys, I was kind of disappointed in the sequel. I literally just watched this movie right after seeing the first Fletch movie, and I was really pumped. Really loved the first Fletch movie, loved the Fletch character, loved how Chevy Chase played him. Then I get to the sequel, and the sequel is really, really disappointing. The character of Irwin Fletcher is still a ton of fun to watch. Chevy Chase still seems like he's having a lot of fun with the role, but the movie is just not good. So let's go over some positives and negatives of why Fletch Lives really isn't very good. So for my positives of Fletch Lives, I like how it continues the Fletch character. There's definitely things about Irwin Fletcher that are continued in the sequel. Everything you loved about Irwin Fletcher is basically continued on in the story in this movie. They definitely don't change the character too much, which is something that I liked. I think the same director came back for this one too, I want to say. So they definitely continue it. It has a kind of a same tone as the first one, so that part was still fine with me. I also thought the opening scene was very promising. It felt like something that belonged out of the first movie. It was kind of clever, kind of fun. Irwin Fletcher gets a fun disguise again. So the opening scene was a ton of fun. It was kind of a very promising opening for this movie. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie isn't that great, but the opening scene was very promising in this movie. There's also an interesting love interest in this movie. Besides the whole setup of Fletch being framed for murder, there's another woman that kind of helps Fletch during this case and stuff, and they kind of fall in love while that's going on. Very fun character. Not to say that the love interest in the first film was bad, but I really kind of cared about this person a lot because they do get to spend a lot of time with this character due to the setup of the story and due to kind of what Irwin Fletcher has to do throughout the course of this movie. So the love interest in this film, I cared about her. I cared about what was going to happen to her. So a huge thumbs up again, I guess. There's also some of the first film's California elements. Because the film doesn't immediately take place in Louisiana at this plantation, there is some California scenes. There's scenes where we get to kind of see Fletch back at his job again and talking with his boss, and once again kind of pursuing his personal life, also taking on big stories for the newspaper and stuff. So some of that from the first film does remain intact here. But once they get to Louisiana, that's kind of where the film literally goes south, no pun intended. From my negatives of this movie, there's just not a lot of investigative journalism elements in this movie. Sure, there's the whole, being framed for murder thing, but Fletch really isn't an investigative journalist anymore at that point in the story. It's just kind of him figuring out what can I do to not go to jail and stuff. It's just they don't play well around with it at all. It's just there's no investigative journalism element. Like I said, it's in the opening scene. I guess it's in all the California scenes in the movie. But man, when the story gets going and they're in Louisiana and there's this whole being framed for murder thing, there's just not enough of that element that the first film had, which is really disappointing. Some of the disguise in this film are pretty lame for the most part. I would say this character alone, this like talk show host character that he plays in this movie in Fletch Lives, not a fun role. It really seemed really it just kind of felt like by the numbers, let's get this over with kind of a scene. It didn't feel funny. And most of the disguises in this film do not feel very funny at all. That airplane mechanic guy that he played in the first film kind of comes back a little bit as like a bug exterminator in one scene. But besides that disguise, really all the other disguise in this film, besides, like I said, this opening scene where he's like a housemaid in person too, all of the other disguises felt pretty lame in this movie, to be honest. So huge thumbs down on that again. There's also this long-going religious talk show thing that Irwin Fletcher gets involved with when he's in Louisiana, and they play around with it way too much. It's just in the movie for too long. It's not funny. It's boring to sit through. I kind of got sleepy-eyed while watching it. It's just not a fun scene, and it goes on forever, and they keep going back to it over the course of this movie, and you just kind of wish the film had an investigative journalism element again, like the first film had. But nope, they go to this stupid religious talk show thing, and they play off of it a lot. They play off of it when the villain of the film is revealed and stuff like that, and it's not very funny at all. And that goes to my next point. The whole plot and setting of this film is very lame. Who really wanted a plot with Irwin Fletcher going to Louisiana, being framed for murder, and getting involved with this religious talk show? I mean, who really wanted that for a sequel? The first film did such a great job with story and with characters and with comedy and with blending mystery and suspense with comedy also, that who really wanted this for a sequel? It's just one of those things where you're watching this movie, it's like, who would have ever wanted this for a follow-up to Fletch? It's just not as good as anybody else on the planet probably would have made it. So, I don't know. I just thought the overall plot and setting of this movie was really lame for the most part. Also, there's no Geena Davis in this film, so that unfortunately that fun side character you loved so much in the first Fletch movie, not even in Fletch Lives at all. So the boss does come back. The IRS guy that's kind of after Fletch all the time is back in this too, but no Geena Davis. And it's really too bad. I really liked her character a lot in the first film and was hoping to see a follow-up to her role in this movie, and they went with the whole stupid Louisiana thing and didn't really care for it. And overall, that goes to my last 2 points. This film has bad humor and it's boring. I just felt bored watching this movie, and that's really too bad. I love the first Fletch. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Definitely can't say the same on Fletch Lives. It's boring, like I said. The humor is really not very good. I just cannot recommend this movie. So, Fletch Lives, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. There's things going for it. It has some potential in some areas, but they really messed up in every other aspect possible. Besides the Fletch character, besides the opening scene, and besides the love interest, and some of the California elements of the first film, Fletch Lives kind of fails in all the other departments, in my opinion. So, 6 out of 10 for me. I can't recommend Fletch Lives. So, if you get this same double feature pack like I did, definitely just watch Fletch, and watch it again if you loved it as much as I did. Just skip Fletch Lives. It really is not worth your time. 6 out of 10 from me. That's my review of Fletch Lives.